Let's be honest, corporate earnings reports can feel like they're written in a completely different language, right? All these numbers, all this jargon, it's a lot. But what if I told you that once you learn a few key phrases, you can actually start to read the story that the company is trying to tell? Well, today, we're going to use Unum Group's latest report as our Rosetta Stone. Let's dive in and decode this thing together. So, what's the big deal with these reports anyway? Think of it like this. An earnings report is a company's report card. It's a look back at how they did, for sure. But, and this is the important part, it's also a huge glimpse into the future. It's where the leadership team lays out their strategy, admits their challenges, and paints a picture of where they're headed. So let's see what story Unum is telling us this time.
All right, first things first. We're going to start with the headline numbers, the big, flashy figures that usually grab all the media's attention. And for Unum in this last quarter of 2025, the picture is, well, it's a little complicated. There's some good and some stuff that makes you go,
Okay, so the first number that just jumps off the page is net income. This is your classic bottom line profit. And whoa, look at that drop. It went from almost $349 million a year ago down to just $174 million this quarter. A drop of that size, that immediately makes you ask, what on earth happened here?
And this, right here, is exactly why you can never ever stop at the headline number. When you dig in, it turns out that a huge chunk of that drop, we're talking over $80 million, came from a one-time pension settlement. Now, that's a big deal financially, no doubt, but it's not part of their normal everyday business. This is our first clue that the real story is a little deeper.
Now hold on, let's look at a number that seems to tell a completely different, much happier story. Even with that big drop in net income, Unum gave back a massive 1.3 times billion dollars to its shareholders last year. That is a huge signal of confidence from the company's leadership. So, how do we square these two things? A scary drop in profit on one hand and a huge shareholder payout on the other. It feels like they don't add up.
To really understand what's going on, we have to decode some of that financial lingo I mentioned. You'll often see companies report the results in two different ways, something called GAAP and something called non-GAAP. Let's break down what that means, because honestly, it's the key to unlocking this whole report.
So Unum, like a ton of other companies, uses this special non-GAAP metric they call adjusted operating income. This is basically their way of saying, hey, let's filter out all the noise. They take out the weird one-time events, like that giant pension settlement, to show you what they think is a cleaner picture of how the actual underlying business is doing day to day. Here is the absolute best way to think about this. The official net income, that's the GAAP number. It's like your gross salary, the big total number before anything gets taken out. It's the official complete picture. But this adjusted operating income, the non-GAAP number, that's like your take-home pay. It's the filtered amount that the company believes gives a better sense of its real performance. Knowing the difference is so crucial because it lets you see the business the way management sees it while still keeping an eye on that official bottom line.
Okay, now that we have our secret decoder ring for all this financial talk, let's pop the hood and see how the different parts of Unum's business actually performed during the quarter.
A big company like this is never just one thing, right? It's made up of different divisions. And when we look, we can see that all three of Unum's main segments saw their adjusted operating income go down, and the report tells us why. A big reason was that they had to pay out more in claims than they expected. This gives us a much clearer, more detailed view of the real operational challenges they were facing. All right, we've looked at the numbers, both the flashy headlines and the adjusted ones. Now let's zoom out and talk about strategy. How is Unum's leadership steering the ship through all this, and what does it say about their long-term game plan?
Let's hear it straight from the top. The CEO, Richard McKenney, gives us a pretty clear roadmap here. He's highlighting two things that go way beyond just one quarter's results, making the company's long-term business safer and, just like we saw, getting cash back to shareholders. This is him telling us, plain and simple, what their core priorities are. And here's what that strategy looks like in action. They're managing risk on old insurance policies, they're rewarding investors with that incredible $1.3 billion, and they're putting money into technology to help them grow in the future. It's really a classic strategy, playing a little defense by managing risk, while also playing offense by investing in growth. Now, this number might look a little random, but for an insurance company, it is absolutely critical. It's called the risk-based capital ratio, and you can think of it as a measure of the company's financial cushion. It's how strong they are and how able they are to pay claims, even if things get really bad. a ratio of 440% is considered very, very strong. It means they have a really robust safety net.
Okay, we've spent a lot of time looking in the rearview mirror. Now for the exciting part. Let's look ahead. What does the company think is going to happen next year? For investors, this is often the most important part of the entire report. So, despite that dip we saw in the fourth quarter, Unum is actually forecasting some really solid growth for 2026. And hey, notice the metric they're using? That's right, it's our old friend, adjusted operating income. This forecast tells us they're confident in their core business, and they believe those headwinds from last year are something they can handle. So, we've decoded the dollars and the lingo, but what's the really big story here? You know, a report from a massive benefits provider like Unum is more than just numbers on a page. It's really a window into the entire economy. It reflects these huge trends in jobs, in health, and really the future of work itself. So the question to leave you with is, what does this report tell you about where we're all headed? Thanks so much for digging into this with me.